Maybe you don't know. Maybe you don't.
This time to build. 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 This time power. This time to build power. This time to build power. This time to build power.
What's up, everybody? I am your host, Chris Hampton. Welcome to episode 66 of the Power Company Podcast, brought to you by PowerCompanyClimbing.com. I am sitting here in Lander, about to go to the hot springs down the road in Thermopolis, so you guys should be jealous. Just wanted to throw that out there right off the bat. Actually, we just got back from Bozeman, and we had an absolutely amazing time spending a week in Bozeman, working with the youth team there, and the coaches were great. And the community there is powerful, man, and I'm excited to go back sometime soon. So thanks to all of you in Bozeman for coming out and for being open to coaching the way that you were. It was huge for Nate and I think. And we are headed to Knoxville next week. We'll be working with the youth team there as well. And we'll be doing a group session on Tuesday, December 5th. And we'll be doing our applied body tension workshop on Thursday, December 7th. That group session, a lot of people have asked what these are. They're just an informal bouldering session. We just come in, we hang out, we answer questions. If you wear a wristband, we offer free advice if we see that it's needed. And it's just a general good time. Come in and hang out with us. I believe it's free for the members there. So definitely come in, say hello to Nate and I, and hang out with us. Come boulder with us. And then we'll be in Chattanooga on the 9th doing our applied body tension workshop combined with our guy Paul Corsaro's kettlebells. That event is actually sold out. However, if you do have any interest, shoot me a message. We will consider doing a second afternoon or evening session if we get enough people who are interested. So shoot me a message if you are. Today's episode is one that I'm still not even sure was real, to be honest. This past summer, I started a list of non-climbing, realistic dream guests that I'd like to have on the podcast. And the only name I put on the list before I abandoned it was Dan John. And on a whim, I just decided to email Dan and see if he would be available while I was in Salt Lake City, and turns out he was, and he immediately invited me over to work out in his home gym, which is just about the most intimidating thing I can think of, and actually turned out it wasn't intimidating at all. It's super welcoming there, and Dan and I got to sit down for a really cool conversation about his newest book, Now What? If you're a coach, if you're an athlete and you aren't hip to Dan John, it's something I suggest that you look into. He's got a very pragmatic approach to training and to life in general. And I think this applies to a lot of facets of our life. So I'm just going to jump into this conversation with Dan, and I'll see you on the other side.
Maybe you don't know. Maybe you don't.
You don't necessarily perform in training. You practice. The goal is not necessarily to break the world record. The goal is to put yourself on the path to break the world record when they call your name and you perform.
Power. This time to build power. This time to build power. This
It's been working really well. So, can we start with, a little bit about the most recent book?
Sure.
I think it's a great question. Now what? After training, where people get addicted to training, right? I mean, it's this great thing that people can measure and they love.
Yeah, but it's not just that.
What?
You just won the Olympic gold medal. Great. Now what?
Sure.
You just bombed out at the Olympics. Okay, now what?
Right.
And so it's a question that just kept pounding and pounding, and we had a hard time kind of. I think it was clear about it's funny. In the book, I think the material was there in 1996. I think the only problem is I didn't have a way to explain it.
Right.
I could do it. It would take me 2 or 3 years, but I didn't have the graph, and I didn't have
didn't have it all fleshed out.
Didn't have the names of things. But okay, here's something you're missing. What is he missing? In 2017, no control over arousal level.
Right.
Back then, I'd say, well, we need more. You're not at the right place at meets. What does that mean? Right. Okay, I don't mean by location. I meant, now I just say on a scale of 1 to 10, and we kind of run through the whole arousal scale, and we kind of break that down from there, and that seems to help. But yeah, so now what? It's interesting because athletic people haven't really gotten a lot out of it, but business people love it.
Interesting.
I'm doing more business workshops now than fitness in some ways.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, let's just go through the basics, okay? There's shark habits. If you email me, I answer. When I open my emails, I answer emails.
Right.
When you call me, I call you right back.
Yep.
When you write a letter, like for example, I just did my vote. I got my ballot today and I voted. Mm-hmm. I don't sit around and I don't let things pile up. I think you should have a nightly menu so that when you go shopping, you shop to the menu. Checklists, things like that. So shark habits. Well, I floss my teeth when I drive because right next to me on the cubby here, I have floss sticks.
It's fun. I've been doing the same thing for several years.
Yeah,
and when I read it in your book, I was like, wow. I never even recognized it as a shark habit, but it is.
And shark habits, for those who miss it, one bite and you're done.
Yep.
And you can walk through any room. I got a great book in there somewhere on decluttering and fat loss. And one of the things they're finding is that when people declutter their home, their office, and their lives, very often they lose body fat.
Right.
Now, why is that? Well, to me, it's the ultimate of shark habits. Once you unclutter your brain, once you get all this noise, of course, we're in a kind of a noisy room right here with all this stuff. I cleaned it up last week, and then, you can always...
Life happens.
Yeah, well, work happens. For those who can't see, I got a pretty good collection of books in this little office.
Yeah.
And they are literally all over the place. And so sometimes when I'm working, I pull out one thing and I pull out another so I can connect the dots. But I have found that if I declutter a closet, all of a sudden that article I was stumbling on makes perfect sense. If you declutter your fridge,
right,
all of a sudden you start eating better.
Yep.
So shark habits basically is decluttering the nonsense. And it's not even nonsense. It's important stuff.
Yeah.
It's important stuff, but get it out of your head.
Yep.
So my email, yes to you, was important, but it was out of my head.
Yep. Done with it.
And then the next one is, of course, Pirate Maps. That comes from Pat Flynn. And that's these short 5 to 8 bullet point things. And whatever changes you want to make in your life, can you make 8 bullet points?
Right. Just a
2
set
hours
up to your goals, basically.
2 hours before you go to bed, put on your blue blocking glasses, take your vitamins, stop watching Game of Thrones and HBO porn, and start settling down, sleep in an absolutely dark room. Make coffee before you go to bed. Get sweaty 2 to 3 times a week, lift weights 2 to 3 times a week, eat protein, eat vegetables, drink water. That's not bad.
Right.
I mean, if you're a trainer and you got every one of your clients to do that, you'd be the best trainer in the world.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So that's pirate habits. Most people pirate habit is a pirate map. Go to St. John's Island, walk 7 paces west from the white coconut tree, dig 6 feet down.
Right.
And there's the buried treasure. That's what most people want.
Mm-hmm. Just a simple map to get where they're going.
Right. But the problem is, and we'll talk about this more when we talk about specifically your climbers, most people want programs.
Yep.
And all programs do, it's 2 to 6 weeks. If you're really somebody special, 12 weeks. I never see it happen 12 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Humans don't go that long. But it's a 2 to 6 week fix. Well, unless you have something to fix, why do a program? Just showing up in the gym or doing what you're supposed to do, walk the walk, talk the talk, will take care of most of your things. I call it park bench programs in my work. But this is what people want. Give me a diet and program. Well, I will, but it's only good for 3 weeks. If you could pirate map your life, that'll last forever. And the last stage, of course, is performance. And performance comes down to principles. Principle comes from, basically means to take first. So if you want to beat me in the discus, you have to throw far. And everything I do to defeat you, if I throw farther, I'm right. If I don't throw farther, we're wrong.
Sure.
So that's the 4 parts. That's the quadrant of it. Okay. And so with Now What, one of the things I'm trying to get most people do is get their brains out of peaking, planning, and programming.
Right.
Get their brain, because it's not for you. The 70-year-old grandma doesn't need all that nonsense, the Soviet squat program.
Sure.
They don't need 90 days of this or that. They need to get sweaty 2 to 3 times a week and lift weight. They don't need that fancy of a program. If you're an athlete, you better know about performance. And of course, with performance, we bring in the other areas like tension, arousal, heart rate, and we can coach those.
Right.
I can raise your tension levels and you can practice lowering them. We can raise your arousal and you can practice lowering them. And then heart rate is one, you can at some level control your heart rate. Now, as a climber, if your heart rate was 190 at the start, I don't know how long you're going to last in that climb.
Yep.
And if your tension is, if you get too much arousal, I imagine bad things happen too.
Absolutely.
I'm guessing, this sounds weird, but discus throwers and climbers would probably share about the same basic tension and arousal level.
Could
you
be.
need a little,
Yeah.
but not a lot.
Yeah. And different types of climbing are definitely different, If it's a really hard, short boulder problem where you're climbing 10 feet of really, really difficult rock, then your tension level needs to be really high, more like maybe a power lifter.
Shot putter, power lifter, sure.
Shot putter. Yeah. And then for a longer climb, it needs to be something toggling back and forth between tension and relaxation.
Right there's Mount Olympus behind us. And, if you decide to go screaming up Mount Olympus like you're about to deadlift, you're not going to go real far. You might die, you might blow up.
Yep.
So is that helpful as just the introduction?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that gives us a really good basis of what Now What is built on. And I do want to talk a little bit about the shark habits first. I think these are really important, and I never had a good word for it. I'm totally going to steal your word here, but
I've always wolf, so don't worry about it.
And I've always told everyone just to remove the excuses. Like the number one goal is to get out there and go climbing. First off, no matter how much you train, if you don't go climbing, then it's not going to work.
Where I would just say this: where's your gear?
Right, exactly. That's part of those. Get rid of your excuses. Have your gear packed. Have it ready. Have food ready. Take care of the bills early in the week so that you can go climbing on the weekend.
There's a good book. I think it's called Ultralight Camping. It's a fun book. I study ultralight campers.
Okay.
Because I find their problem fascinates me. I like problems.
Yep.
And these guys, and one of the things they say is you should always have a bag packed, ready to go.
Right.
So that on a Tuesday afternoon, you're driving home from work and you decide to go for a 2-hour quick hike. You don't go home. Where did I put those boots? Where did I put my hat? Where did I put?
Right.
And so for me, shark habits come down for you guys, for us. It's like, I can tell you where all my discuses are right now, but I can tell you where every single one, I can tell you where every kettlebell is. I can tell you where they are in the rack. I can tell you where all my plates and weights are. Because that's where they are. My training shoes, I get ready the night before I train. And really all I do is I pull out a pair of black shorts and a shirt, but then I don't have to wear. In the morning, they're right there,
right?
And the more, like you said, excuses, the more I train. Probably 200 to maybe even up to 300 workouts a year,
right?
And none of it's because I have great self-discipline. It's because it's all set.
It's just there. It's already in the routine.
Yeah. For example, as we sit here, I am sweeping my floors.
Yep.
Because I have this little robot that is programmed to sweep my floors at certain times of the day when I'm usually not here.
Right.
But I like to think, his name's Bob, by the way.
Okay.
Bob, the carpet cleaner.
I'll say bye to Bob when I leave.
And I like to think that at some level, shark habits are like Bob going off at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
That's just what time it goes. Mm-hmm. And the more you can line up things in your career like that, the easier it's going to be.
Yeah. I see a lot of, I don't like to use the word failure, but I do see a lot of failure when people are trying to fit their workouts into this schedule that's constantly changing. And if they just built their schedule around their workout, had their workout at a set time, once you get in that habit, you just do it every day.
Well, I know of a guy who says that you don't have people first work out. You have them put their shoes on every day.
Yeah.
For 1 week, you put your shoes on, and people all laugh. And of course, no one listening is going to do that.
Sure.
Of course,
they want to go straight to the thing.
Yeah, and that's fine. But you have to build the sub habits before you can have. The reason I work out every day is that people show up at my house at 9:30.
Right.
I don't have any self-discipline. They show up, we work out.
Yep.
Why does Bob go? Why do I clean my floors every day? Because Bob goes off, and I see it the same way. So that's what shark habits are. It'll be unclear to you until you start to kind of there's a couple things that'll help you. I think you should have a to-do list every day. Mm-hmm. And the one thing I've noticed with to-do lists, when I write them down for the next day, that there's usually 3 or 4 things that I wonder why I didn't just already do it.
Right.
Email John. Well, why don't you just do it right now? Yep. And pretty soon you find that your to-do list is just stuff you should have already done. Mm-hmm. So that's where I start. That you look at the daily to-do list and you'll find, and then the next area you just step back and you look at clutter. Clutter in your computer, clutter in your life, clutter on your walls, clutter. Yeah. Because the more cluttered you are, the harder it is to swim. So you're telling me you want to become an elite athlete, but you're swimming your way every day through the same nonsense. You can never find your workout clothes.
Right.
Well, man, clean your room.
Yeah. I think that clutter comes down to goals too. A lot of people have 50 different goals of all sorts and shapes and sizes and can't keep them all straight.
And when you slide over to performance, it's real hard to have more than one.
Yeah.
My God, I tried to balance Olympic lifting with discus throwing, and it worked for a while, and then I just blew up. Mm-hmm. What the phrase we use is, if you're chasing 2 rabbits, you go home hungry.
Right.
So how many rabbits are you going to chase?
Just one.
If you want to be great.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a gentleman climber, a gentleman discus thrower,
sure.
Great. Yep. But I'm going to beat you.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever,
Yeah, and a lot of people point to guys like Bo Jackson or Deion Sanders.
Yeah. Can you name another one?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. But those are 2 guys, And not all of the NFL players were also great Major League Baseball players.
The weirdest thing about working with NFL guys and any team is that when I go into the room, I'm the smallest, slowest, weakest person. Anywhere else in the world, I'm the strongest, fastest, biggest person.
Right. I can definitely say you're the biggest person I've ever interviewed because we're climbers and we're little. So
And so when you talk about these, once in a generation freaks, mm-hmm. But that's what happens. And so many parents will look at their kids and say, well, it's very difficult to chase 2 rabbits.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, as soon as we can get into weightlifting itself, that's the biggest problem your climber community has. Now, there's 2 problems, but that's one of them. When they go into the weight room, they don't know what they're chasing.
Let's talk about it.
Okay, let's talk about it. Since 1975, and actually probably more like 1951, bodybuilding has been the paradigm of my field. Mm-hmm. And in 1975, Arnold, the Education of a Bodybuilder, came out. And then that's when leg day, arm day, trap day, soleus day, pancreas day all showed up. It's when going for the burn and all elements of hypertrophy showed up. Now, it's true, back in 51, Delorme talked about hypertrophy with his wounded soldiers and sailors and Marines, but he was also talking about power, too. But by 1975, and certainly by the 80s, weightlifting has been, and the phrase I use from theology is the steno symbol.
Right.
It means it has one meaning.
One meaning.
So when you work in this, got a call just before you got here, young man wants to be a sprinter, and he's struggling in the weight room. And I'm like, okay, well, the problem is his paradigm is bodybuilding. Right. So he's doing curls, tricep extension, forearm work.
Yeah.
He's adding all this mass. Of course, if you're a sprinter, it's like a climber. Every ounce you put on, you got to deal with. It's called physics,
Sure.
And so what I'm trying to convince him is get as strong as you can. And all of a sudden there was a gap in the phone call. It was like the phone connection went. What do you mean by that? I go, well, you got to get as strong as you possibly can in the least amount of work. So I came out with this book called Easy Strength, and programs like the 40-day program and Even Easier Strength. It's funny, they're all the exact same thing, but I keep trying to explain it better and better to people.
Sure.
And so they keep getting different names. The 40-day program is real simple. For the next 40 days, pick 5 lifts, do them. Mm-hmm. And people say, well, how's that going to work? I don't know. But if you decide to go, and you do the rule of 10, so never more than 10 total lifts. So 3 sets of 3, 5 sets of 2, 2 by 5. For your community, that's what they should be doing. They should probably pick a big, pull-up. It wouldn't be a weighted pull-up would be great.
Yep.
A press to go opposite.
Yep.
So a press, a pull-up.
We really like overhead presses.
Yeah. Okay.
We love heavy pulls. And
a deadlift.
Love deadlifts.
Deadlift of some kind. And then what I'd have, for you guys, you might not need anything. Maybe a heavy power curl. It's a curl grip.
With a wide grip.
But you're using your whole body to make it.
Oh, okay.
So like a power clean or Olympic lift with a curl grip, because just to get you strong and explosive if you have to jump.
Sure.
And then 2 sets of 5 in the ab wheel, something very small like that. So press, pull up, deadlift, that weird power curl, and an ab wheel, and you do that every day for the next 40 days. And the idea is never miss a rep. Right. Just keep getting stronger. Mm-hmm. And people raise their hand at the workshop. Well, will that build muscle mass? Okay, let's go back. How many rabbits we chasing here?
Just one.
How many sports really need muscle mass? Now, it's true. American football, rugby.
Right.
And probably sports. If you're a professional wrestler, because you have to look a certain way.
Right.
Okay, keep going. There is no bodybuilding contest in track and field. In fact, that's one of the things that track and field finally came to grips with a while ago, is quit bodybuilding. These guys would finish a race and flex. Right. Well, good for you. And the poor thing is the high school kids see that and start doing it too.
Sure.
So the biggest problem most of your listeners are going to have is that their worldview of what we call the weight room is bodybuilding.
Yep.
And they probably can't even hear me say that sentence. And that's the hardest thing. And the joke I usually use to explain this is the word gay. The word gay means happy. Sure. The word gay means happy. The word gay means happy. Go home tonight and say, Mom, Dad, I'm gay. Guarantee.
Right.
Even if you say gay, because the word in 2017 has a steno symbol. So I can sit down with somebody, look them in the eye and say, there are other kinds of weight training that aren't bodybuilding. And they'll go like this and then go over do skull crushers for 3 sets of 10. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to break people out of it. So with your community, like for example, if we're doing pull-ups, load yourself up so that, it's hard to do 5 sets of 2 in the pull-up. The next day, unload it and do 5 sets of 2 in the pull-up. And the third day, find a middle weight, something middle, and do 5 sets of 2. And pretty soon, your pull-up's going to shoot through the roof. Why? Because weightlifting, strength training, and flexibility training are both neurological. It's the nervous system. We're training our nervous system. After a while, the load and the reps suddenly make the body have to do a super compensation, an adaptation, and that starts the hormonal release.
Right.
And that's when good things tend to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But for many in your audience, they don't need those. They don't need mighty pythons on their arms.
Right.
They need strong fingers. Well, how do you build strong fingers? Well, you build strong fingers probably by doing those little doorway pull-ups and the little gripper thing and stuff like that. But I can guarantee everybody who does good work on the grippers probably didn't leap up on a wall first day and hang by one finger.
Right.
How'd you do it?
Built it up over time.
Built it up over time. That's my whole field. Build it up over time. And yet, no one can hear me because they're in that worldview, the paradigm, the steno symbol of bodybuilding.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And a lot of, I mean, I do see that happen pretty often, that when clients come to us, their experience in the weight room, if they have any, is 3 sets of 10. You know, they're doing curls, they're doing skull crushers, they're doing that kind of stuff. We have had some success in getting people to embrace the bigger lifts. You know, there are a few coaches, Steve Bechtel and Lander, where I'm also at, and my partner Paul Corsaro, who really advocate for the big lifts, and we're definitely seeing some change over there. So it's pretty exciting to see that happening. Quick question for you on the thoughts about the rep schemes. I know a lot of people get really tied into having to add a half a pound on their next workout and things like that. You know, where do you stand on these kind of things?
The problem with linear in every aspect of life, it's the beginner's high.
Right.
You can't it's not sustainable. So you're going to bench press 100 pounds today, and next week we're going to add 10. So let's see, that's 10 pounds a week. How many weeks are in a year now?
52, I think.
Is that right? So at the end of the year, you're going to bench press 620 pounds?
Right.
Well, that's linear. According to what you said, it should work. Nothing in life is linear.
Right.
You know, I'm at the age where I got all my retirement, my individual retirement, all that. And when I look back at it from 81 or 80, when I first started it, you'll notice that it grew a lot, but it grew in fits and starts. It probably, boom, 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 and bust. And that's kind of how everything that's worthwhile in life works.
And you just stick it out through that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best advice I have for coaching is the best advice I have for relationships, the best advice I have for, finance, lifting, everything, little and often over the long haul.
Yeah.
You know, that's, so when I tell people about weightlifting, and but let's be honest, we are fighting television commercials that go on 24 hours a day in hotel rooms, 90-day promises,
right,
where these people are promising, I wouldn't say overnight results. Charles Staley's famous book, instantly add an inch to your arms in 2 weeks. And I got nothing because I understood what he was saying, but so we know that it doesn't work. But so what we're dealing with in this case then is that people are hearing this nonsense, and you hear it long enough. I mean, you start to believe it. I was watching some of the stuff about the election the past year. If you repeat a lie often enough, pretty soon people think it's true.
Sure.
And it doesn't matter whether or not it is. And so there is a big lie in my industry. It is that you can have quick results.
Right.
Now, I think you can have easy results. It just takes 2 years to do it. And I work with people who've lost 100 pounds in a year. And it's stunning what their plans are versus what you see on television.
Right. Really simple, bare bones.
I went for a walk every day. Wait, and? Oh, then I started drinking 2 glasses of water a day. And you lean in and that was it. Oh, but we're faced in the world I live in with this idea that A, it's all quick results, and B, it's bodybuilding. So when you talk about something like linear periodization, but I guarantee everybody who's learned how to do certain things, I've heard the same thing about skateboarding, I'm sure it's the same with climbing, is that you fall into these weird plateaus. Yep. And you get nothing and you get nothing. I got good advice years ago to fall in love with plateaus.
Okay.
You embrace a plateau, love the plateau. Because the plateau means that somewhere down the line is another leap.
Sure.
So instead of fighting the plateau, say, this is just great. Here's my skill set. I'm so happy. But don't try to pound your forehead against the plateau. Just go with it and then add it.
Master where you're at.
Yeah. The book Mastery is based on that concept too.
Right.
Was it John Jerome Mastery?
Not sure.
George Leonard, maybe. One of those two, yeah. But the idea is, the knock on linear periodization is that you are some kind of little machine that's just going to get better and better and better and better. And that doesn't always happen. Things flatline. Whenever I see projections about anything, and I know, things can get worse, things can get better. But when you sit down with the guy who's trying to sell you a life insurance policy with all this money you'll have because of this, and they show you this projection, you always just got to go, okay,
right?
Really? You're going to guarantee me 7 point? Well, we can't guarantee you.
Yeah.
Well,
we're guessing that that's what it's going to be.
Yeah, because it used to do this, and it's just not true. So that's a tough issue. That's a tough issue.
Yeah, I think it's tough for people to break out of that habit, and it. I understand that desire to be able to measure your progress, and you talk about in Now What, find something to measure it, and then apply practice and technique to it, and then decide whether it was a good measurement or not.
Right.
And I like the simplicity of that. Just find something to measure that's applicable and measure it,
Well, I tell you one thing, personal trainers hate it. I mean, I tell them, measure people's waistline in centimeters because there's more wiggle room in centimeters.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
104, 103, 102, 100 sounds much better than 42,
16th of an inch.
7th, 8th. Yeah. But the thing is, if the person is making progress, that thing should go 104, 103, 102, 100, maybe 98,
right,
97, maybe back up to 100, maybe, because that's the way things happen. But at least you have a measurement. The nice thing about being a track and field athlete is there's this number. Right. And I assess you simply by that number. Mm-hmm. Now, in other sports, I don't always see it as clearly.
It's tough in climbing.
I can imagine.
Because things are so subjective difficulty-wise, it's tough for us to accurately measure. But there are things we can measure. How much weight can you do with your max pull-up?
Yeah.
Or how long can you hang on to a 3/4 inch edge? Things like that you can measure. And what I think is important is to note that you're not necessarily measuring your training, you're measuring to see how your training is working.
Right.
So it's not those half-pound plates that you add every time. That's not the measuring you're looking for. You're looking to every 4, 6, 8 weeks, whatever it is, measure to see how your progress is coming.
It'd be interesting to see what you would consider standards in your field.
We're working on that, actually. That's something we've struggled with for a while that we're trying to figure out.
Well, so, as a discus thrower, I mean, I'll tell a young discus thrower, you bench 400, you snatch 250, you clean 300, you squat 450. Why aren't you throwing international distances? Because that's the standard for international throwing.
Right.
So your problem isn't here in the weight room with me. Your problem is out there in the field of play. So the upside of standards is it allows me to kick people out of the weight room. Well, not, but
just to say, this isn't where you need to focus your time.
Okay, you keep coming into the weight room to do skull crushers and concentration curls.
Right.
This isn't your problem. We're not your problem.
Yep.
Because the measurement in track and field is beautiful. There's one called the tape measure, and there's another one called the stopwatch. And that's not bad. You can see these things, and I can tell you that you're up to standard in my area. You got to get up to standard out there.
Right.
What it takes to do that, it can be complicated, but yeah.
Yeah, and that's something we've really been trying to boil down and figure out. We've been using 2-time body weight deadlift.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
1.5 time body weight pull.
Ooh.
And I think body weight press is where we've been at for women.
Okay.
And
Body weight for women.
bench press.
Oh, okay.
Not
Oh.
overhead. And
So
then
that's rare air for female. Yeah.
yeah, and then 1.5 for men, I think
That's a good size lift too. Man.
was where we were at. Might even have been just body weight.
Yeah, those are high. But what I would tell you to do is, with the men for sure, go overhead. The military, for sure, and that'll bring those numbers down too. Yeah, but I agree with those. The other thing too is, I in your field, if someone's spending probably more than 12 to 15 minutes in the weight room, they're probably just spinning, as they used to say in the 50s. Muscle spinning is what they called it. You're just, you're wasting your time. If you're doing 2 sets of 5 and 5 exercises, you shouldn't be in there very long.
Right.
But and because every minute you're in the weight room, I always tell people, it's like you walk in and I slice your sandbag and you're slowly dripping sand out. Most people like to go back, try to throw more sand in. But no, get in, get out, take care of what you need to do. But that's hard. It goes against this kind of weird thing we have in the United States about work ethic.
Yeah. More is always better.
More has to be better.
Yeah.
Because I work 60 hours a week. So what? I work 6. Maybe. The thing is how many people are you serving? The more people you serve, the more money you make.
Right.
So even though you're working 60 hours a week, you're in a rotisserie baseball league, you're in a fantasy football league, you look at porn on internet at work, you get up for coffee every 45 minutes. You're not working. Yeah, you're in the office, but you're not getting anything done. That's actually not a bad way to explain that.
Yeah, I think so. And you say in here that in Now What, that focusing on principles is actually a shortcut. And I think that's really cool because everyone's looking for a shortcut. Everybody wants that shortcut. And in reality, the shortcut is the thing that no one really wants to do, is focus on the principles. We're all so interested in these little tiny measurements and little tiny numbers and little tiny details.
So we're talking about performance then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, John Heisman, 1931, American football, block, tackle, fall on the ball. If you focus on those 3 things, you still do pretty good in football. What it does is, when you're in performance, if you focus on the principle, you get so much more clarity.
Right.
So,
and you can create pirate maps, as you call them, out of those principles. I mean, I think that's the way we see it. Like
you certainly could. Yeah, you could certainly do that. Yeah, especially as things get a little more, like for example, for us with discus throwers, it's pretty simple. You throw and you lift, and that's really all you do.
Right.
Yes, you should. Should I do sprinting? Yeah, that's fine too. But really, it's throw and lift. Could I do, should I play volleyball? Yeah, that's fine, but it's not,
Right.
You'll probably get more out of playing chess than you do get, But yeah, but people love more. But the beauty of principle focused is that it gets you right to the point,
Yeah.
instead of all this other nonsense.
Yeah. And that's, we were trying to come up with the principles for climbing better based on your ideas.
Let's try this. I've asked this question a million times. I've never asked it with a climber. What are the 3 keys? And don't give me 5. I said 3 to being a great climber.
What we came up with.
Good boy. Good job.
That I like is commit.
Okay.
And move efficiently.
Okay.
And hold on.
So I can help train 2 of those 3. Yeah. So now what you would do with that is you would probably star. So you put hold on, and then you just cluster ideas out of it.
Right.
And then you keep trying to run through these ideas. And I would even, see how my hand is washing. So I'm washing out the ones that are pretty good, keep those for a while. But if you find something better, dump pretty good.
Yep.
You want to keep clarifying it, so that maybe you come on to 3. If you don't mind, let's hold on. Okay. What are the 3, as you said, hold on, right?
Yep.
So what are the 3 best tools for teaching holding on?
I would say you want the technical term that we use for the tool.
Yeah.
So a hangboard, which is the edges that you're talking about, hanging onto. And any sort of tool that you can use to hang on for a long period of time while moving, so that your forearms build up lactic acid. And
you get used to it.
Yeah, exactly. You learn to use it better. You learn to climb in that situation better. That helps you hold on. And then I think the other aspect of it, which you can build in both of those, is a mental component of, like I just said, learning how to. Rather than your body adapting, your mind has to adapt to it as well.
So the thing I'd ask, okay, if I'm coaching you, if we're doing this as I'm mentoring you, where's your pegboard? Was it pegboard?
Hangboard.
Where's your hangboard?
I have one that I hang up on the porch outside when I'm working out every day.
You're following what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
If you say,
keep it nearby.
Or
where you're working out.
It's down in, it's down. It's not far. It's about, if traffic's bad though, it's about a 3-hour commute. Well, you never use that thing.
I actually have one in my car right now.
Okay, so what you want to have is, so the question is just, how often do you use it? Is it in a place that's usable?
Right.
In my house, if I was working here, I'm not a climber.
Sure.
But I'd put it right there, and every time I went up and down those stairs, I'd probably try to hang a few seconds.
Yep.
Or whatever the proper amount is, whatever that number is.
Yep.
Yeah, and so for the listeners, I'd like to just kind of remind them that this is the process you go through when you're trying to peel back performance to its elements. And then at the end of this assignment, you had 3 things, and you break them down to the 3 best tools. Then you sit back and say, well, where is this in my program? Now, if one of them's absolutely glaring, I don't do this, that's when we step down to that other area called planning, peaking. And
right. That's where you figure out the program to make
this is where we're going to take, you got a 12-week hangboard assignment. Mm-hmm. You got a 12-week upside down rope climbing, or whatever the thing is.
Right.
That's when you add a program in. If you've got so there's 3 concepts and there's 9 things. If you've got all those pretty much wired in, then I would argue, well, let's look at the next bubble out. So Pareto's law, 80-20.
Right.
So those 9 things are probably going to take up 20% of your training time, but they're going to give you 80% of the bang.
Right.
These are the biggest bang for the buck. Is that right? Mm-hmm. If it's not, now let's look at that other 20% that we're getting. Where can we? What's the other things that we're missing? It could be you need to up your gear.
Right.
You need to spend more money.
Better shoes might work.
Better shoes. You might. Maybe you need to spend time with better climbers. Maybe you need to,
for sure.
Go to France and, see a different style you've never seen before. Mm-hmm. Expand your mind.
You know a lot about climbing for not being a climber.
Do you know a guy named Mark Twite?
Yeah.
He's one of my good friends.
Oh, great. Yep.
Mark and I have had many a conversation. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think Kiss or Kill is one of the most enlightening books I've ever read.
Yep.
It's not my world.
Sure.
But it really illuminated some things in my head.
And I think climbing is a basic skill sport. I mean, it's like all the other skill sports where you've got a lot of different moving components on the field of play, and you have to figure out how to make all those things work together effectively.
But see, as a head football coach, I'm gonna watch the game film, and I'm gonna say, how many missed tackles do we have? And the assistant will say 3. What was the final score? He'll say 21-0. So let's look at those 3 plays where we missed tackles, and let's find out. And then it's in the book. The section might have been lost on some people, but you ask the linebacker, why did you miss the tackle? And there's a story there. Mm-hmm. On that play. He was trying to help his buddy out who was getting blown out. Then you ask the buddy what was going on. Coach, I was exhausted. Why didn't you come out? Oh, I heard I never get a chance to play if I took myself out. No. Okay, so the whole team, you're tired, tap your helmet with your right hand, we'll sub you right out as fast as we can.
Yep.
So we didn't miss a tackle. We missed, as a coach, we failed because we weren't clear on things. So when you run through your performances and you look at things later, if you're performance-based, you fall back on those three things. You make this climb. You go down to El Capitan. That's a major.
Yep, in California.
Yeah, it's a major, big one, right? That's kind of a badge of honor, right?
Yep.
Certain climbs on it, right?
Yep.
So you finished El Capitan, and as we sit back and review a couple days later, the first three things I'm going to go back is block, tackle, fall on the ball. Right. Those three things we talked about. And then you could probably maybe share some experiences. Okay, here, and you maybe circle here, and here, I was falling apart. And then we could, here are gaps that we need to work on.
Right.
So that's what Now What is all about. You did climb El Capitan. God bless you. You're wonderful. But as we broke it down later, those are the three things we break it down in. It could be nice to use time, but time, I'm not sure time, and I know that, like Mark with the rapid ascent stuff. I know, right. I mean, I understand that too, but when we throw in safety and things like that,
Yeah, time's not generally a thing that we are super concerned about.
Yeah. So you come back to those three big things that you pointed out today, and we keep coming back to those three things. And when you feel like you weren't up to your standard, usually it's crystal clear to you. There's a story by why you weren't up to your standard.
Right.
And very funny, the story sometimes is 2 weeks before this happened.
Sure.
2 days before, I didn't get a good night's sleep. Usually I have magic chalk from, Happy Valley.
Right.
But I couldn't afford it this time, so I had Bob's magic chalk.
Right. You didn't put it on a checklist and shark habit it, so you don't have it.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, it's funny. It does come back to shark habits sometimes.
Yeah, I think it does.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this that we're talking about, especially when we go into those, you find the gaps and then what's the story that's there. A lot of it does come back to a shark habit that didn't get done or wasn't shark habited, or however you would say it. Something on your checklist didn't get checked off, and that was where it failed, not right there in that performance.
I learned that my freshman year. We're down at the conference track meet at Hartnell College, junior college, and one of our sprinters called a group of us over, and he was afraid to tell the head coach this, but he had forgotten his shorts. So he had his sweatpants on, but all he had on was a jock.
Right.
So fortunately, because we were a team, we were able to fix that problem in a group huddle about 20 seconds before the race.
Yeah.
So he was, instead of doing his bounces and jumps, he was putting on a pair of shorts. And that's the moment I realized that's really kind of important to take an extra minute or two to look through your bag before you go to a track meet.
Yeah. Have it all together.
Yeah. And that's a shark habit. That could have been fixed 2 days before.
Yeah. You make another point about principles that I think is super important for climbers, because we're in a sport that's so hard to measure your success, and it's a never-ending scale. There's always going to be a rock climb that you can't do. There always will. There are no world records, so to speak, or anything like that. So you say focusing on principles allows a different measure of victory. And I think that's really important. That
I said that?
You did say that.
That's really quite good.
It is good.
Wow. Damn. Yeah.
That even if you don't win the Super Bowl, or don't win the World Series or whatever, that doesn't mean you weren't successful.
Right. Yeah. See, that's the one thing we kind of have as an issue in the United States, I think, especially in the last little bit, is we have begun to define success in a way that I don't think is sustainable as a culture. the person who dies with the most toys wins.
Right.
So I'm not sure that's a sustainable model. So I go to the nationals. You're younger, taller, faster, stronger, on anabolic steroids, so much so your eyes are yellow, and you defeat me. Well, according to the United States model right now, you're better. Well, my argument would be, well, let's look 40 years down the line.
Right.
And that's a hard thing. Success, and really that'd be the fascinating thing about you climbers. You're right. There's always going to be, another mountain, another challenge, and someone younger, prettier,
Yep.
Scooting it up faster.
Yeah, I mean,
than you do.
nowadays there are 13, 14-year-old kids who are the best climbers in the world. So, you're over the hill in this sport once you're 19, 20.
I remember the Snowbird, when Snowbird used to have that climb. Do they still do that?
On the side of the building?
Yeah.
No, they don't do it anymore. It was the first big major competition held in the U.S., though.
Yeah. It was a fascinating thing because it was based on speed, right?
It was part of it was based on speed. They do speed climbing, but the part that most climbers are interested in is based on difficulty.
Oh, so the big leaps that we have to really kind of...
Yep, or small holds, difficult moves.
Yeah,
and then if two people do the same difficulty, then they go down to speed to sort of break that tie.
Okay, wow. So you're looking for the hardest route.
Looking for, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of, like I mentioned bouldering earlier, and there are a lot of boulders here in Salt Lake. What they do is they rarely climb higher than 15 feet, but they're looking for the hardest single movements that they can do.
Yeah.
So it's always looking for something harder, harder.
So, like skateboarders, I always found from my conversations with skateboarders, when the X Games showed up and they started having competitive skateboard, it seemed to go completely counter to what the skateboarders had told me the culture of skateboarding was.
Right.
What they told me it was that you were this ongoing quest to kind of be challenged to the next movement. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't competitive. They had their own hierarchy, and they had,
right.
So, if all I can do is roll down a hill, I'd be in a different. And it was interesting because once they pushed it to this X Games thing, I think it, as an observer, not as a,
sure.
I have no dog in this fight.
You don't go skateboard every day?
Nah, but it seemed to kill the key to the culture of the sport of skateboarding.
That's a concern with climbing as well.
Isn't that fascinating, isn't it?
A lot of climbers feel the same way, that competitive climbing isn't climbing.
So my little observation was spot on.
Absolutely.
I got something right. There you go. But it's, there are sports that by nature are me versus you, and that's what they are.
Yep.
But what I've always enjoyed about, probably started showing up in the 70s, this new style of sport that really it's a kind of us against this thing.
Yeah.
It. I like that. Us versus it. And we were actually walked with each other.
Yeah, and it's really us versus ourselves in those occasions.
Right.
This immovable thing will always be there.
Yeah.
It doesn't change. We have to change.
A sport that's actually oddly similar. Now, there's competitive, but is the sport of Olympic lifting. Mm-hmm. If you went to a weightlifting meet, and let's just say you're a brand new guy, do you want pounds or kilos?
Let's do pounds. That's what most people in the audience will know.
And how much do you weigh, Chris?
Around 147.
Okay, so you weigh 147. Okay. And your opening attempt is with 110 pounds in the clean and jerk. So you're a real novice.
Yep.
And you get it, and you come up after, and you're nervous and scared because 120 is your personal record.
Right.
And you make 120, the crowd loves it.
Right.
Because everybody has walked that walk in Olympic lifting.
Sure.
Well, it's the strangest thing. I have this small love affair with Olympic lifting because of that. This understanding that you walk on the platform, that weight, it's you. It's
That's
by the way,
your
it's very
challenge.
unnerving. Olympic lifting is a very unnerving sport.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Because it's just you and a barbell.
Yep.
You can't say the judge has got you. You can't say that he's on drugs because it's just a bar.
Right.
And I mean, once it gets competitive, things change a little bit, sure. But that's the one thing I always thought was beautiful about the sport of Olympic lifting, how happy we are for each other, that you got your best, just,
Yep.
and it can be a 400-pound clean and jerk or a 200-pound clean. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's definitely that way with climbing. You watch someone who's at a lower technical or difficulty level than you are, but they're still putting in the same amount of effort that you are, and fighting to reach their personal best.
I don't know if you've ever read the book Millionaire Mind.
No.
I think I might even quote it now. It's a thing I read in 2008, I guess, where this idea that very wealthy people, if you make this big business deal, we're both millionaires, I don't go, damn you jerk. I go, right on, man. That is so good to hear.
Right.
The wealthy tend to really be hyper supportive of other wealthy people getting wealthier. By the way, this concept doesn't trickle down to the rest of us.
Right. Sure.
So I went to a track meet after reading this, and I told my discus throwers and my shot putters, javelin, in fact, I had hurlers the other day too, I don't care how you do today, but I want you to cheer like mad, crazy, for your teammates to throw their best. Well, we swept the men's and women's discus. We almost swept the shots, but there's another kid from our school. Every athlete I had that day got a personal record. And it was the most insightful thing that ever happened.
Right.
Because once we started cheering for each other, good things happened.
Yeah, that community support is huge.
Yeah. And it was such a different way to look at track and field that it really changed my whole coaching. It was interesting because later that season, I had both daughters at the state final in the track meet. And what I saw was fascinating because my daughters are competitive with each other.
Sure,
and with the
sure.
Competitors. But I could see them and I applauding each other and getting the other one going.
Yeah.
And I thought, boy, this is not just a good coach lesson. This is a good life lesson.
Sure.
And I think it'd be interesting to see where your sport heads as the competitive side. The sponsorships will show up. Money will show up.
It's ramping up. I mean, the Olympics, it's going to be in the next Olympics. So
And
a lot more money's coming into the sport. And
it'll be interesting to see.
yeah.
Every sport always has the fringers, the lunatic fringe,
Right,
who are
right.
not going to ever sell out. But what's going to happen to your sport is the next thing you know, you'll see some 14-year-old boy showing up with his hat on backwards with the logo and, all logoed up on his shirts. And you'll have climber moms who.
Oh, yeah, they're coming for sure.
Yeah, they're going to
some
show
out there.
up and come. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's. Though I wish it wouldn't happen, but you see it does hapen.
Yeah, and
Because
I
ESPN
think
has
we grow
to
with
fill
it.
20 stations with something,
Sure.
Yeah. Let's get back. I'm sorry.
Oh no, that's
that thing. The Millionaire Mind book might be worth the read just for that section.
yeah. I'll check it out for sure.
Just that you might get it at the library or something like that. Just that section. Just change the way I coached.
Yeah. Well, I believe in that. I believe in that community and that encouragement and that sort of tribe atmosphere. We definitely try to promote that within the Power Company, which is our climbing group. And I mean, I think it's helpful. And we see it out at the cliff. And some of my favorite moments out climbing are when I'm having a particularly great moment and everyone stops what they're doing to cheer me on, or someone else is having a great moment and I get to stop what I'm doing to cheer them on. Those are the best moments for sure.
Yeah.
Do you try to create that in the weight room at all?
Yeah, very much. Yeah. So my gym style is called intentional community. Mm-hmm. So this week, I have some friends from Scotland visiting.
Right.
And they've been wonderful. But they showed up and didn't know how to do certain lifts that we pretty good at.
Sure.
So what we're doing this week is that we're all going back to the fundamentals. Yesterday was an hour of Turkish get-up work. I tell you, man, by the time I got food in me, I was on a buzz.
I wish I'd have been here for that.
Well, you're always welcome, 9:30. Okay. Today was a 1 hour build up to the bent press, this archaic lift
Yep.
But the thing is, even now, I still feel like I've been torn and ripped back into place, And so intentional community means when you show up at the gym, you don't know how to do a lift, or you're about to do this experience, we all work with you to get you there. And I learned this when I first moved to California in 2010. Met a guy named Dan Martin, and he wanted to rebuild himself. In fact, there's often discussions online of the Dan Martin program minimum. For 1 year, he did the exact same basic workout, 365 days, and rebuilt himself. And I tell you, I love that. There's two parts of that story I like. One, humbling yourself, and two, 365 days. I love those two parts.
Yeah.
So what we learned is you'd show up and you're getting ready for a thing. Well, okay, you got 6 weeks. We'll do it with you. So if we have someone getting ready for a kettlebell cert, which you have to do that 100 reps with the 24K.
Right.
I might not do all 3 sets of 100. That's one of our workouts. It's a hard one. But I'll do 1 set with you. Bob will do 1 set with you. Mike will do 1 set with you. So you're not out there alone.
Yep.
There have been times where I've done all 3. I've learned not to do that as much anymore. Don't do that. It's all nice to be nice until it's not nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to me, that's how I foster it in the weight room. I think the concept is intentional community.
Yeah.
We get together to eat, to talk, to be friends, and to train. They come to help me at 60 years of age to keep working out and keep swinging the bat.
Yeah.
I offer them facilities and a fair amount of knowledge. This person offers this extra tool this book they just read, this story they heard, this blog post that they read this morning.
Right.
Everybody has a hand in it.
Right. Everyone brings something to the table.
Everyone brings something. And I tell you that in the last 7 years, I've had, in many ways, the best workouts of my training sessions. Check that. Best training sessions of my life. And it's completely changed the way I look at competition. You see a little bit in the books, but the idea now, and I got good at this towards the end of my career. When you called my name and I stepped into the ring, I got bigger. I got better. I performed. You don't necessarily perform in training.
Right.
You practice.
Yep.
You get better. It's okay to have a beautiful moment in training. There's nothing.
Sure.
But the goal is not necessarily to break the world record. The goal is to put yourself on the path to break the world record when they call your name and you perform.
Right.
So that was the big breakthrough for me, among a few other things in the last few years.
Yeah, you say in the book several times that performance should be better than practice.
That's the whole part of the last part of the book.
Yeah.
Okay, folks, you can't hear me say this because no one can hear me. Performance should be better than practice. I know you didn't hear me. No one hears me. I mean, it's life-changing when you figure that out. But what happens is we come from this more is more. More is more is more is more.
Right.
More has to be better because there's more.
Yep.
There's more. That's got to be better. And yet, when they call your name, many people just flatline or worse, dip down, and it starts this loop that you can't get out of. I want you to pop, explode, amaze yourself at a competition. And that will build the foundation for the next competition, the next one.
Right.
Constantly this kind of spiraling up,
And you have to push through that performance anxiety, that nervousness, all of that one time to be able to push through it the second time, to be able to push through it.
In the book, I talk about the Ultimate Fighter I worked with, right?
Yep.
And this guy I was getting my...
with his warm-up routine.
I was getting my leg worked on. I have pretty rough hips, and it's funny, I was sure I'd have surgery. The new x-rays say I'm fine. which is just the weirdest thing in the world. It's like somehow I cured hips.
Don't argue.
Yeah, just keep walking. Thank you, doctor. I'm walking. In fact, the doctor was going to do my surgeon. Is that guy right there?
Oh, great.
Yeah, he's a very famous person. I had a story.
The Ultimate Fighter you worked with.
Oh, thanks. Sorry, folks. And he was telling about this warm-up that he would go through for these ultimate fighting matches. And I'd be like, and I go, well, how do you perform? Oh, it's always worse. But I'd lose weight. So finally he had this fight where he's going to lose. You know, sometimes you get picked and you're going to lose.
Right,
You're out there to survive 3 rounds and, you know, Rocky won, make it look like a show. Okay. Well, he wins because all he does is he rolled around a few minutes and said, well, since I'm going to lose, might as well go out there. Might as well not have 5 workouts.
Right.
Well, he upsets this guy in a massive upset, career-changing moment. And it was like, when it was all over, he was like, well, wow. So,
right. He just went back to the thing that he did before practice instead of the thing that he did before performance.
He performed instead of just being worked out, wrung out,
Yep.
you know, beaten against the rock. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know why people think that's a good way. Slamming your face against the wall is some kind of superior training program. I just don't understand that.
No, I'm with you. We're all with you 100% here. Can we talk about one more thing before we let you go? I don't want to take up too much of your time.
I appreciate this, by the way.
One of your most famous phrases is something that we've quoted a lot of times, and that's the goal is to keep the goal the goal.
Okay, let's go back on that real quick.
Yeah.
Originally, it was the mission is to keep the mission.
Right.
The mission.
Yep.
And that comes from both the religious areas of life and
the military.
The military.
Yep.
And the biggest problem you have in the military is that here is the mission, and there's this thing called mission creep.
Okay.
You know, Marines are very good. Their standard operating order is if all the officers and sergeants are dead, we attack.
Mm-hmm.
If something bad happens, we attack. If we're not sure what to do, we attack.
Right. So
the Marines are very good at this thing called we attack.
Yep.
But pretty soon you have them teaching a daycare because we don't know what else to do. Well, that's mission creep.
Right.
And what happens is the goal is to keep the goal. The goal is probably the most difficult thing I have as a coach, mentor, teacher, whatever hat it is that day. So you said you want to be an elite discus thrower. Yeah, that's what I want to do. So why are you doing crunches? I want to look good in the summer, coach. Okay, you said you want to be an elite discus thrower. Those crunches actually probably hurt your performance because they're, the body is one piece, and we're trying to rotate around this base, and this base has to be solid, not tired.
Right.
Okay. You said you wanted to be an elite runner, and yet you're doing 10 sets of 10 in the curl and tricep extension.
Right.
Well, yeah, I want to look good on the beach this summer.
My arms look good when I run.
Your arms look great when you run and you're in last place. I mean, you have a great view of the race. I got to tell you, you have one of the best views of the race of anybody. You can see what's going on up there. Mm-hmm. The goals keep the goal the goal. I talk to people. The one person who's heard it the best is my daughter Kelly. Well, Kelly, when she's a baby. Mm-hmm. She wanted to be a school teacher and an administrator. So when she went to college, she called me up one day and says, "Dad, I hate college." And I thought, oh no, don't say that. Would you mind if I went to night school and summer school, get it done sooner? Yes, that would be fine. She didn't take a single class that she didn't need.
Sure.
She took, if it said I need these 12 things, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Yep.
And I've learned things from both my daughters. There's some things that's the nice. So they're 27 and 25, so they're adults.
Yep.
It's kind of cool to be going. Oh, that's pretty. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll write a book about that. I'll take the the residuals and you. I'll quote you.
She owes you the residuals anyway at this point.
So the goal is to keep the goal. The goal is one of those things where, it's hard for the person in the moment.
Sure.
So if you're my athlete, it's hard for you because you're getting bounced around by friends, family, social stuff, the entertainment. You're gonna be doing this thing, and all of a sudden you're gonna watch what's that guy's name? Cruise. Tom Cruise sometimes in movies will do climbing things.
Yep.
Like he'll leap out of a window and Dubois or something, right, and then spin down this thing, crash through another windshield, right?
Yep.
Your poor climbing kid's going to watch that and say, hey, how come I can't just leap off this cliff?
Right.
Well, not only is there gravity, but there's also hard rocks on the bottom 300 feet down there. And that's going to really ruin your day.
Yep.
So sometimes as a coach, you have to just let the person finish the sentence and then be the big kid.
For sure. Something that we run into that I think is interesting, and I'm curious if this fits into your idea of keep the goal, is like when we do get people to go into the weight room and to deadlift and they fall in love with it and they start spending all their time deadlifting.
Cross-pollination. Yeah.
And pretty soon they're deadlifting, 4 times their body weight. And we're like, you could have just started maintaining your deadlift, 2 years ago. Now you're not climbing as well as you did, but that was the goal originally, So does that fit into the same?
So once you have standards, once you have a person up the standard, and then you want to get them to standard as easily as they can.
Yep.
Even less work, take more time off, keep trying to get them at standard. But that's the problem. You start to have, we added a new thing. We added the weight room. Now we have a new toy.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have.
It's really exciting.
One of the hardest things about when I brought kettlebells in was what did I throw out?
Right.
When you bring a TRX into your gym, what do you throw out? Now, for us, the TRX has been a boon because we've been able to throw out a whole bunch of isometric upper body pulling exercises. In fact, we've been able to get rid of tons of upper body pulling exercises. Don't forget, I work with big guys.
Sure. Yeah.
So when we talk about pull-ups, it's a different world for us.
Right.
One time it's called the Beast, a 48K.
Yep.
106-pound kettlebell.
Yep.
I've done a pull-up with that.
Wow. Yep.
But don't forget, with my body weight.
Your body weight's a lot more than mine.
So when I did that thing, and people say, you ever do it again? No. So I actually I'm training to try it again. But enough is enough. Right. I don't need to be able to do a beast pull-up, except for my ego.
Right.
But you can't help it because my ego gets in the way of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes this would be the art of coaching. I have a 3-day workshop called The Art of Coaching. And one of the things I try to teach people, I'll give you all 3 real quick. It's what you know. It's how you do it, the application of what you know.
Yep.
And then the third one, savoir-faire. The ability to change directions in a moment. The ability to sense something's wrong with your athlete because of a breakup or flu or something.
Sure,
and
whatever it is.
But savoir-faire is the one, and I give them all equal. It's what you know, it's application to do, and then the savoir-faire. Because if you don't have all 3, you can't coach.
Yeah, you're going to fall
So sometimes
flat.
when you're working with an athlete and you convince them to lift weights and 4 years later that's all they want to do, you then have to have that toolkit to go back in there. And sometimes it doesn't take a ton. My college coach, the late Ralph Mon, who was a great man, I'd fallen in love with Olympic lifting. I had become an Olympic lifter who threw the discus.
Right.
And he was able to quash that out of me a little bit. He was able to show me performance-wise, I was the strongest thrower he had ever had in his history, but my performances weren't there.
Yeah, that's big. I've got a guy right now actually who just gave me his max weighted pull-up numbers, and the number he gave me was 145 pounds. And I said, "Is that plus your body weight?" And he said, "Yeah." And I'm like, okay, well, we certainly don't need to do any more pulling exercises for
ever
quite a while. So
I imagine this guy can.
But he loves it. He loves lifting. He loves doing heavy pull-ups, and it's going to be hard to get him off of that path. But
and the other thing too, I always joke about this. If really attractive women come to my gym, I start pressing.
Right.
Because I'm really good at pressing.
Yeah.
But you would come in and say, "Dan, I thought you were supposed to be doing pull-ups." I'd be like, "But they're hot. Did you notice how hot they were?" Because when I do pull-ups, I am not the alpha. I'm not the king of the hill. I'm not the king of the hill. See how this works? I am now like normal.
Yep.
When he does a 145-pound pull-up, he's the king of the hill.
Right.
So
Totally.
you're asking someone to, but that's part of who we are as coaching, as mentors, is to make sure the goal
is the goal.
keep the goal. Yeah. I tell you, that's when I first kind of sort of became famous with that line. I remember it was so obvious to me, but so many people saw it as a breakthrough concept.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's just like you were talking about with Now What, that you had the material in 1996, just didn't have it all in words and didn't have names. You know, that's how it feels when I hear those phrases come from you. And I'm like, that's what I've been trying to say all this time.
Right,
you know?
right. We have a good plan. Well, I use this phrase more than I should, but let me repeat it one more time. The word coach comes from coach. You know, wheels, horse drawn.
Right.
And so a coach's job is to take you on that route.
Right, sure.
So when you do your best job as a coach, you're keeping the athlete, Yogi Berra, if you don't know where you're going, you might end up there.
You might end up there, yeah.
So, all those other funny jokes that,
Yeah.
But the number one job of a coach, and really the word coach is, the goal is to keep the goal.
Right.
You said you wanted to go to Dubuque.
Yep. That's where I'm going to take you.
Why are you going to Tucson? They're not the same direction from here. And that to me is what coaching 101 is being literally a coach in what the word coach means.
Wow.
I tell you one thing, it is well worth your time. If you got coaches and things like that, let me give you another word that's fascinating. Okay, mentor, right? Mentor.
Yep.
We used the word. There is no such thing as mentee. Now we use it and keep with it.
Right.
It comes from the Odyssey, that book right over there.
Yep.
And it's Telemachus' teacher. Ulysses' son Telemachus had a teacher named Mentor. And he was so great that 4,000 years later, we still refer to an honored teacher as mentor. And I always add that at the talks now, when I can, when it's appropriate. Because what I would love, and I try to tell the audience, 4,000 years from now, if your name meant devoted, loving coach, guide,
right?
Wow. I mean, that is just so sometimes taking a few, I know it sounds corny to the audience, I'm sure, but sometimes when you get lost as a coach or anything you do, just stop and look at the roots, like principle.
Yep.
It means to take first.
Exactly.
So if you want to take first, what do you got to do? Well, discus, throw far.
Yeah.
That's my principle.
Well, there's a lot in the words we use, I think that's...
Sometimes magic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes there's magic in there, and I think that's very true about when you come to these these athletes that are using more as their paradigm. Sometimes it's our job to say, hop on board, we're going to Dubuque. We're not going to Tucson. You said you want, or whatever.
Right, sure.
Yeah. Good stuff.
That's great. Man, I really appreciate you
absolutely
taking the time out. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. And thanks for driving here. And
yeah, I'd love to. I'm in town occasionally. I'd love to do it again sometime. Talk some more.
No problem. Here in my lovely office with the Mount Olympus in the background.
Yeah, I have to. Is that you in the picture with your daughter?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were young once.
Well, when you go to my gym, there's a lot of young ones. That's my mom and dad.
Wow.
My mom died in 1980. My dad died in 1991. And this is right below them is my daughter's wedding. And right there is my daughter's wedding. And so there's me throwing the shot put.
Look how young you are.
Yeah, well, but my mom and dad were, my mom never made it to my age. My dad barely. And it's so that's what keeps me going too.
Yeah.
The legacy and the big picture of things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where the big success is for you.
Yeah.
Awesome, Dan. Well, I appreciate it, man. We'll do this thing again.
You bet. Appreciate that.
I'd say that Dan's doing a pretty good job of creating a legacy that will live on for quite some time. He's definitely affected the way that I coach, and I know the way that hundreds, thousands of other coaches approach their jobs, and athletes as well. And I don't know if you guys noticed this, but listening back to this interview, I definitely was surprised at how quickly Dan sort of got into the climber's mind. You know, he's not a climber by any means, but he was able to recognize these small things that we do, like obsess over the type of chalk that we're using, and use that as an excuse. And I think that's pretty insightful, and doesn't happen by accident. That's because Dan's got 40 years of coaching experience, and at being a high level coach with high level athletes. And I think that's something that we should really pay attention to. That stuff doesn't happen by accident. So big thanks to Dan. I really appreciate him sitting down and talking to me and just taking the time out. He's a busy guy. You can find Dan online at danjohn.net. You should definitely subscribe to his Wandering Weights newsletter, and you should check out some of these books. If you go to our website, powercompanyclimbing.com, click on the blog post for this podcast, and you can buy the books directly through there. We get a small kickback from Amazon, and you're helping support the podcast without raising your prices, and we hugely appreciate that support. If you want to directly support, you can do that at patreon.com/powercompanypodcast. For as little as $1 a month, you can become a patron of the podcast, and we hugely appreciate that. You guys are what keep this thing going. You can find us at powercompanyclimbing.com. You can find us on the Instagrams, the Pinterests, and the Facebooks, where you should definitely come and find us, friend us, like us, share all these things that we do. And you can look for us on the Twitter. You won't find us there because we don't tweet. We scream like eagles.
Maybe don't know.
This time, this time.